It's great to be joining the both of you. Um, I know that we had the opportunity to be able to work together on the last volume of the anthology for the Remedy of Solidarity, which is a multimedia anthology on global reparations. And that volume was called In the Midst of the Imagined, that was curated by Adriana Ward as part of this like mini-series pilot that we were able to do at ZEAL. And so now we are months from that. We are months from that um, activation that we're able to do through not only through the exhibition, but a series of programs that we were able to also produce through Zeal as well and Englewood at the Residency Art Gallery. And so now that we fast forward and now we're getting ready to launch the first couple of volumes of the anthology, I just wanted to be able to check in with the both of you just to see how life has been like for you as a creative since that time we were able to produce that. Because I still remember when Leah along with Gbenga and Nandi had brought a proposal to Zeal to want to do a group exhibition, and it just so happened that we were able to make this work. So yeah, I think we can just start with just like introductions from the both of you, and then just share with really us, where have things been since we were able to produce this exhibition, and maybe like what's a major takeaway that you're gaining from it. Maybe we can start with you, Leah, and then I know Benga's on the move, so and then Benga can go after.
My name's Leah King. I'm from Oakland by way of New York. It's time in Berlin. I'm a visual artist, collage artist, sound and installation artist, DJ, music producer. Um, and yeah, so the work that I made specifically for In the Midst of the Imagine was uh, just visual art. I was able to share some audio during one of our evening activations. And that was incredibly important to me as somebody who's brand new to Los Angeles. I've known Nandi, one of the other artists, for almost 20 years now. So it was a really important sort of grounding process for me to get really involved in the local Los Angeles community with a bunch of like minded artists who also had complementary practices to my own. So it was a really great sort of door opener as I kind of get acclimated to this completely different environment. LA is very special. So that was really wonderful for me. And since then, I've been hard at work in a MFA program at the USC Roski School for Art and Design. That's where I am right now. And I'm deep in a audio ecology project, exploring my family's connection to dance music through multiple generations, and how we've used nightlife culture and the arts to both liberate ourselves and then also comment on the specters of violence. And my multi-ethnic, multi-religious family lineage, there's many different ways that sort of music and dance and nightlife culture have been components of our sort of our journey towards self-actualization. So yeah, that's kind of this immersive sound process that I'm working on right now. I'll be doing a bunch of traveling. So it's been pretty great.
Nice. Okay. I have more to ask given this new project that you're working on through your MFA program. So I'm gonna get to it. But Lenga, you still there with us? Just short intro and then what you've been up to since we've been able to connect last through the exhibition. Um, you know, and then major takeaways.
I've just had a few shows, and I feel like Leah said, the show is a really important like grounding moment and connecting us with community and just like yeah, meeting curators and other artists who are like interested in the same work and yeah, it's been a really it's I guess yeah, it's been almost a year since then, and it's I feel like my practice has just grown immensely. doing. I just recently did this dance project, which was interesting to like take the work outside of the gallery aspect, but still like be exploring like the same topics and ideas. Yeah, I was just talking about being able to take the practice outside of the typical gallery system as well as within the gallery system, which has been very fulfilling and like the type of stuff I want to be doing more of. So um, yeah, it's been a good journey since the show for sure.
It's cool, just at least from what I was able to catch from you, Benga, in terms of like this last piece around working inside and outside of the gallery system, and then the pieces you've named, Leah, in your own practice around utilizing your family lineage to explore like house dance music, and all these genres that are essentially linked to black folks in our lineage and legacy across the diaspora, because some themes I want to lift up from the previous recordings that we've done have been around the relationship that Black people have to their bodies around labor. And so we had April Banks, who in this next volume is going to be doing a lot of public activation work based on the public installation that she's done in the city of Santa Monica on the historic Belmar community, who were displaced due to eminent domain, red line, all kinds of policies that essentially have rendered that community as obsolete in that area. But the history of what they were able to build was a thriving community. And so she has done some public installations in that community, and by extension, the Inkwell, the park where Black folks would come to be able to swim, picnic, um, be able to build with family. And so it brought up like these pieces around colonial violence. And the other talk that also included Francis Kokoroko, who's a photographer, and then Selko Kofigan, who is a multidisciplinary artist, and they were in the Accra exhibition. So they were talking about like the survival through the transatlantic slave trade through like colonial violence, but then also, ironically enough, there are these exhibitions that are very future oriented, that are shifting and transforming our relationship and our bodies to labor. And a lot of focus is actually on our leisure and how that gets explored through our creative practice. So that's where we landed in terms of like this thread. And I'm seeing something very similar across the both of you. So I wanted to talk and ask you both in terms of your own creative practice that you're finding in this work. Um, like for you, Leah, to start, like how did you land there in terms of like chronicling this timeline of your family and their interaction with this genre? And what are you seeing come through as threads for yourself in your own learning and practice as you're engaging with this work around sound?
Thanks. Wow, what a great framing. And I was so happy to hear you say the word leisure or leisure, because that's actually a key word in a lot of the collages I'm making right now are about Black leisure, specifically my family, who were my grandparents. Well, my grandfather, who's a Tuskegee Airman, was stationed in Germany during the post-war occupation and brought the whole family from Brooklyn to Wiesbaden in 1951. And it was an interesting time for many reasons. But a lot of the photos and the archival images, found images that I'm finding in all these different shoe boxes all over the place in my different closets of my family members, chronicle this lifestyle, this experience that my grandparents had in the 50s of traveling all over Western Europe, going partying, going to Paris, going to Berlin, going to London, checking out museums and art and dancing. And I know they did all this in Brooklyn and in Harlem. They were having that experience in New York, but obviously it was very different in Europe at that time. And I've been interviewing my family members, my aunts and uncles, sort of about what was that like to experience the world as a Black person in New York, where their Brooklyn environment was very inclusive. All the family lived on the same block from one another. And then when they were in Germany, having this like very different environment as Americans first, uh, and yet still experiencing this constant specter of racialized violence, as knowing that the sort of Nazi occupation was like very not even history at that point at all. It was still an active component of that life. And so then we have my experience moving abroad in the early 2000s, well, 2011, looking similarly for that type of experience of that sort of Black leisure, of this sort of like liberatory experience of getting to be, and this is really, I think, connected to some of Gbenga's work, not so much your artwork, Gbenga, but some of your other work as a DJ and a performer. And sort of what was that like for me as a musician to get to be in these spaces where I was craving this sort of like dance floor liberation that my parents and my grandparents had had to experience. And yet for me, I still felt that specter of violence at all times, sort of like on my shoulders. And also as a Jewish person, I'm having Ashkenazi Jewish heritage, and sort of always having that specter around me. I'm really interested in what does leisure still look like now. And so a lot of that is connected again to dance music. And so my particular vantage point is in the Black queer house community. That's kind of music I'm a part of. That's the community that I'm a part of. I love a lot of these spaces. I've traveled to Chicago, Detroit, New York, Berlin, and London, and wherever, just sort of getting to be a part of these spaces that are very inclusive and dope, but yet not separated from racialized and gendered violence. So I kind of want to get into that little middle space where how come we're finding these like super beautiful Afrofuturist spaces that are giving us this sort of connection to technology and new forms of expressing ourselves and new definitions of what our bodies can be in space, and all these different versions of leisure, and at the same time still being subjected to some really incredible violence. So yeah.
No, thank you for that, Leah. And just like I think connecting the dots and looping over to you, Benga, I think given what at least I was able to witness with your work in conversation with Leah's work, and everyone else within in the midst of the imagined, and then you being able to talk about how that experience was and where you are now. I think I would love to hear a little bit from you in terms of like what it looks like for you and all of the different talents that you do have to be able to lean into the ones that maybe you feel like, even as we just laughed and joked about in terms of like dance and movement, and how do you think about all of those things even if they're not on public display, in terms of your work, and how that inevitably impacts those who are the receivers of it. Even with the last show that you just had, like where are you seeing yourself in the exploration of the different modalities of the talents, gifts, and skill sets that you have, and its overall impact on future audiences in terms of where you're landing now in your work.
Yeah, I think it's just like any chance you get to exhibit, you like learn like things look different in your studio than they do in a gallery or even just like in any other context. And so just like having the experience of what my type of work looks like in a space, I think has helped me just think through the logistics of art making and how to put things on walls and how to, uh, you know, make a sculpture so it's easier to install and things like that. Like that's been really helpful. I guess conceptually, um, I think something that I really landed on with the in the midst of the Imagine show was like my uh, desire for like more abstractness, and I think that was the start of this. I mean, I guess I've been on the journey for a while, but I guess trying to remove the like representationalness of it all. And I think in that show it was still super representational, like there were human figures. But I think the way I was trying to depict them was more abstract, and I've been yeah, journeying more further down that path. I guess conceptually, because I feel like there's a way to approach like a deeper truth with uh, just colors and abstractness. And I think especially kind of like with what Leah was saying, with how heavy everything feels in the world, to me, I have a desire to, I guess, like transcend the topics of the day in a sense, for a more like spiritual uh, connection to art. So I guess that's what I've been exploring more and more of, is like the possibility for abstractness to, and I guess sometimes it does feel a little, what's the word? It feels just like a nice catchword to say, but I think I've personally been experiencing the like tranquility of purples and the peace of blues, and looking at those colors do help me, and so I've been exploring what that looks like, and that's my little rant.
Now that you've been able to participate in this show, just reflections on the importance of the role of artists in movement building work, especially as we're talking about reparations. For both of you, I just really enjoyed seeing, even as you shared, Benga, both of you being able to take concepts of the past and images and signifiers of the past. And I think Leah through your family and Benga through the use of spirituality to to bring the conversation of reparations into a very future oriented place through this exhibition. And so, yeah, I just wanted to just get your last thoughts and reflections on the importance of the role of artists to be able to captivate audiences and patrons in this larger conversation about what more can become possible when reparations is achieved. So I'll start with you, Leah, and then I'll end with Benga. Just any closing thoughts and reflections on the role of artists in the larger reparations movement building.
I think something that really came up also in our artist talks and in the Q&A that we had at the exhibit is that reparations means a lot, can be defined in many different ways, and can affect us in many different contexts, especially looking at the different all the different definitions and the different connections people have to Blackness in the United States. So I think it's really important for artists to be able to expand on those conversations and offer multiple vantage points with which people can enter to even have that conversation, because there's so many different realities that are like coming together, but we're all ultimately looking for the same thing, right? Which is increased like enfranchisement for Black folks in the United States and beyond, Black people within the entire diaspora. And so I think it is really important for the arts to help sort of spark a lot of different aspects of that conversation, redefine it, expand it, um, and really allow for a lot of the space creation to have these kinds of conversations. And I think also really helps with legislation as well. People really do need to know history, and folks like us that work in don't mind working in archives. We can really reframe some of this historical material and be like, yo, can you just really look at it though? If you're not going to sit and look at the documents of whose land was actually stolen from them, and how much, like, and what money was literally siphoned away, then look at this art piece, listen to this audio collage, like engage in this installation so that you can maybe open your heart, open your mind a little bit to kind of figure out why this is an important topic. So I think that's a really vital aspect of the arts in these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, art and artists have existed sort of like since the beginning of time, and I guess I sort of take that like spiritual aspect of it, where I was resonating with a lot of what you were saying, Leah, where it's like in the archival sense, you're taking this information that people don't necessarily are like invested enough to research, but you can take it and remix it and turn it into something that's a little bit more palatable in the form of film or whatever. But I think also on just like a metaphysical sense, like you're taking in the zeitgeist or the ideas of the day and the feelings, and are able to articulate that in a form that feels a little bit more relatable to people than like these big structural ideas or whatever. And I feel like throughout time that's been an important um, yeah, an important tool to help humans just understand their place and sense of space and time. So, yeah, I feel like that's the sort of mindset I've been taking as I create more work and develop my practice and find the importance in the work that I'm doing. Um, yeah.
And I think that's another through line I'll just say in terms of the overall creative process, being able to see how people are approaching that in these group exhibitions and through the zine making and through the soundscapes and the audio testimonies is really seeing the as you said, Leah, the different vantage points that people are entering into this work and what we as creatives are allowing for people to do in that. I've seen that across both of the exhibitions, whether that is through zine making, whether that's through we're gonna do ambient sound, whether we're doing these soundscapes and we're gonna engage in these like panel and charrette style like conversations. Um, and I've also seen how it's informed the artist in continuing their practice and evolving it. So I just want to thank both of you for your participation, at least in these kind of kickback sessions that we're doing through podcast. And yeah, our hope is to be able to have people stay tuned through these podcasts for the next iteration of these volumes of the anthology that will be released. So just want to thank you both. And until then, we'll see you next time.